good evening. In tonight's episode, we're diving deep into what lies ahead for healthcare funding, medical scheme benefits, and affordability. We'll unpack how members can optimise their healthcare benefits, how schemes are managing costs, and the role of technology in shaping many experiences. Hello and a warm welcome to You and Money. I'm Bryan, and this evening we're focusing on the healthcare industry. With all the current turmoil surrounding tariffs and the resulting impact on consumers, it's an important time to remind viewers to review and evaluate their healthcare programs. For those joining us for the first time and for our regular viewers, consider this. Medical aid premiums typically increase by 8 to 9% annually. At that rate, your medical aid costs will double in just 8 to 9 years and then double again following 8 to 9 years. It's an alarming trend that deserves serious attention. Joining me this evening is healthcare expert Clayton Samsudin. He's Group CEO of Phoenix FSG. Clayton, good to have you on the program.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Thank you.
Well, the first question, Clayton, medical members are encouraging people to go onto a wellness program. Try and become your own insurers for the minor ailments and do the things that are necessary in terms of wellness. Please, how is this being unpacked in the scheme, other than Discovery and maybe one or two other schemes?
Yeah, so look, the majority of the private medical schemes in the country today have wellness programs and, otherwise known also as preventative and screening programs. And some are more well developed than others. But I do think that, one of the key aspects is getting members engaged on these programs. So, I think without an incentive, well-developed systems like Discovery, Vitality, or Momentum Multiply, where members are incentivized by virtue of a reward. So you participate in a wellness and screening kind of test, that equals a reward or a benefit that you receive, or cash back in some way or the other, which could either be through retailers or through other types of vehicles. But that typically gets members engaged on understanding their health status, knowing their status when it comes to basic health risk assessments like hypertension, diabetes, and so forth, cholesterol. And of course, those are the conditions that cause, by the way, most of the deaths, by higher death rates than what we see in other diseases. So knowing your status is an education scenario. It means that being educated, you become aware. Awareness, equals participation. And by the incentive and by gamifying some of these rewards, that gets members involved. And of course, a healthier member claims less. So you could have, full-blown diabetes type 1, but, kind of managed means you're going to claim a lot less than someone that is not being managed well.
Clayton, why do members need rewards? I mean, we all know, I think go back to my insurance days 60 years ago, when I do a life application, and members would put they asked the question, have you seen a doctor in the last 3 to 5 years? And they'd say yes for checkups. And the underwriters never accepted that. They never believed people went for checkups. They always said, what did you actually go for the doctor? Maybe it turned out to be nothing and you called it a checkup. But why do you need financial rewards to understand that you need to have regular checkups, check your blood pressure, check your sugar, check your cholesterol, all these things for the wellness? Because I'm now talking, wellness is one thing, but I'm talking the future costs. How are people, if I think of someone who's 50, who's retiring at age 65, their medical aid is going to be, and I repeat, 4 times what they're paying today. So someone in a comprehensive plan paying between 12 to 15,000 is going to be paying between 48 and 60,000. And that's when you're going into retirement, when you're already having a look at where can you cut back on, because obviously you don't want to run, you can cut back on a lot of things. But as you get older, the one thing you can't cut back on. So why is it necessary to give rewards? Do all the medical aids give rewards, or do why don't the medical aids like send notes go for this checkup, go for that. Remind people rather than say, we'll give you rewards if you do it yourself, and talk about status and all that. Shouldn't the medical aids becoming a little bit more proactive in reminding members you haven't had a blood, all those type of things? I mean, if you think of artificial intelligence, there's just so much information, so much that can be gleaned by the use of that to remind members, go for, women go for a mammogram, go for pap smear, go for all those things. Because if you catch it early, one, the chances are you will live, and two, if you catch it early, the cost will be that much less.
Correct. So I think you're entering into the realm of human behavior. So as much as what we understand we need to go for a checkup, and as much as we understand we need to go for a dental checkup twice a year and an eye test, etc., I think unfortunately it becomes a behavioral issue. I think today, unlike many years before where it was a stock standard scenario where you would go to the doctor for regular checkups, as you've mentioned, but today I think with the generations changing, the thinking is changing. So in order to kind of encourage members and to try and change the behavior, you have to kind of become more innovative in terms of the reward system. And to take it a step further, I mean, I've seen developments from just issuing a simple reward to making it even more interesting by doing almost gamifying the reward, so that you play a tile sort of game on the app and you can get different types of rewards and so forth. But I have to say, we have to give credit where credit is due. And on the Discovery Health side, they've been very kind of proactive and innovative in terms of if members have tested, say, positive for a particular disease or condition, they do reach out to those members to offer the certain kind of personal health pathways that members can participate in. I'd also say, a lot of it has got to do with, again, we're coming to the broker environment. So I think advisors should be doing more in terms of encouraging members to participate in those programs. At the end of it all, I think we will see more participation. And why? Because as NHI starts to gain momentum, there'll be lots more kind of publicity around preventative and screening, rather than the reactive way of I only go check up on my health if I'm not feeling well. So I think, NHI and the whole publicity and education around preventative and screening will increase participation.
It's a pity you as a broker, because you don't have your client's medical history. I mean, you act as a consultant, you act as an administrator, you're there to help, but you don't know. Maybe I need to engage on the medical aid to be a bit more proactive. If they've got a history of the person, they know what they should be doing, and making sure it's not waiting for the major illness to happen or go to the doctor and they discover something, but doing something. Let's just talk about now the cost of medical aid. Let's talk about the cost of hospitalization, the cost of doctors who aren't networked, the exorbitant cost. People are a bit skeptical about gap insurance cover. Why is that?
So again, I think it's a matter of the gap cover, in my opinion, should be part of the initial financial, the healthcare needs analysis and recommendation. These two are inseparable as far as I'm concerned. You can't be recommending a client join a medical aid without the gap cover. So in simplicity, gap cover, you almost should, Bryan, run a show just on gap cover, because it's as complex as the medical schemes. It's a short-term insurance policy, and it's there to ensure that, shortfalls for major medical in particular are covered. So a quick example, if a specialist or a discharge above the medical scheme rate, say 500%, and your scheme reimburses at 100%, you're in for a 400% difference in the tariff. Added to that, at the same time, you could have a deductible because you're using a hospital outside of the network. If they are conducting an MRI, CT scan in hospital, you'll have a co-payment for that. So you could land up having 3 shortfalls with 1 hospital admission. And so it's again about, ensuring that the major medical, the major risk are covered. And then lastly, and I think very important, is that people think they confuse gap cover with the self-payment gap. So I think it's an important point for me to say that, you know, there are very few gap covers that provide cover for day-to-day expenses. The majority are on the major medical side. But one of the most popular questions we get is, I'm in my self-payment gap. On the day-to-day side, can I claim from my gap cover? And the answer to that is no. But there are providers that have got smart products that do reimburse members where the specialists charge outside of the hospital now, higher than the medical scheme rate or the GP. They do have benefits like that, and those are great benefits, but not a self-payment gap.
You know, I think about when you talk about today, so topical, cataract operations. Is that done in hospital?
Yeah.
Oh, it is done in hospital. So that would be considered hospitalisation and gap cover. And gap cover, I mean, why does gap cover vary? Because I saw someone's budget yesterday from 250 Rand to 900 Rand. I mean, again, they can't be covering the same things.
No, they're not. So exactly like on a medical scheme, you'd have a core, say, medical scheme plan, and then you've had a comprehensive plan. The same applies on gap cover. So you could purchase certain benefits that you need, and it's important, you know. So the advice component of the gap cover is such that the gap cover recommendation must match what you have on the healthcare side. Otherwise, you know, you're going to land yourself up in a situation where you're paying for something, but you wouldn't be able to claim in most of the instances.
As you say, it's a short-term. It's a short-term product. And then just explain network designated services.
Okay, so what you have, the correct term is a designated service provider, which we short as in DSP, otherwise known as a network. So what that is a group of pharmacies, a group of hospitals, a group of healthcare service providers that the scheme contracts. And in doing so, they secure a lower rate for their members, meaning members that seeking, let's say, hospitalization must go to these designated service providers or networks, failing which there's either a co-payment or the claim won't be entertained at all. So it's important then members understand what these networks are, what providers are in the networks, and also with the hospital side. So a simple example, if an advisor is recommending that a member chooses a plan with a network hospital, is to discuss those networks with the client as well. Which is the hospitals on the network? Are you happy with these? And if so, then great. But then also explain that in that particular environment, if you are allowed to go to a hospital outside of the network, but then you'll have a deductible. And if you have the right gap cover will cover that deductible.
Well, let's come back to that after our break, because I want to talk to you. People believe networked providers, it's inferior service and certainly not up to scratch. We're going to take a break. Stay tuned. We'll be shortly back.